There's Matthews, the man everyone, even the Bolton supporters, would love to see get a cup winner's medal.
Near the German goalmouth, left half Duncan Edwards cuts through the defence line like a knife through butter. He beats Vapors and shoots, and it's in the net. A beautiful goal.
Some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now. It's four. The reserves are on. There's George Easton, there's Jimmy Armfield.
The guy who takes my position, I hope he will find it a little bit smoother and everything will go well for him.
And Bremner has scored! And that was the start that Leeds United wanted!
Roberto Baggio over the bar! Well, that was incredible. But even the great players feel tension.
It's a terrific honour to be in charge of your country's football team.
With regret, the FA and Glenn Hoddle have today agreed to terminate Glenn's contract.
This is a match that's had everything. You know, it's pure theatre, really.
Tell us, first of all, you were born in Denton, Manchester. How did you end up in Blackpool?
Wartime, really. I was at school in Denton and I came home one day with a gas mask. I remember in a cardboard sort of container with like string around my neck. I can always remember it. And at the time there had been bombs in Manchester. You know, I'd seen them, none too near me. I had my mother and father talking and it didn't all go down well, I know that. And the next thing I knew, I was living in a boarding house here in Blackpool with my mother. We lived 2 floors up in a room no bigger than this. And we lived in there for nearly 4 years. We just had one bed. I can see the room as if it was yesterday. We had drawers, little table of drawers, and a little sort of semi-book stand. That was it. And my mother looked after the boarding house. She helped in the cooking, and because the Air Force were billeted there, Polish Air Force. They were all going off to various venues and so on, you know, coming and staying. Some stayed with us. We stayed there till the end of the war. My father used to come over at weekends. My father was slightly too old to go in the forces, but he was the senior air raid patrol warden in that area where he was. So he had to stay there, and he was a grocer's assistant in the co-op. And he used to come at weekends whenever he could.
And what was life like for the young Jim?
The one thing people never tell you about wartime is, you know, we had no street lighting for 5 years. None at all. And of course, from sort of the end of October till February, you know, it was dark a lot of the time. So you've got to learn I had to run the streets a bit. I got in a bit of trouble. I played truant from school a few times. The school board, as they were called, I remember coming around to see my mother and asking where I was, and that's how it got discovered. It wasn't looked on very favourably because there were enough troubles around, you know, in the war and so on, without kids, you know, playing hooky. The evacuee children it was slightly different for those who were already entrenched in the school, you know. You get that even today. And so I had to learn to scrap a little bit. But I got through all right. Went to Revo school, but I managed to get 11 plus. That was the big turning point for me.
So you got 11 plus?
11 plus, yeah.
To go to a rugby school?
Well, a lot of the lads who left, or girls who left, they went to other schools. There was Blackpool Grammar School, the girls went to collegiate and schools like that. My father said, no, you're going to Arnold School. And the reason he said that was because he knew 2 people in Denton who ran a hat factory. Denton is where all the hats were made. They sent their 2 sons as boarders to Arnold School in Blackpool. So my father thought that was good school. And he also knew that it was firm, the discipline. And he decided that was me. There was no choice. That was it. That's how I finished at Arnold.
And what's Arnold School about to be called?
The Armfield Academy, yes.
So the story comes full circle.
Well, it does, because the funny thing was the school was good for me because I had some tricky times in my early days. We used to get reports, and I can remember one of them which said, he must improve both in work and behaviour. Simple as that. And I had to take that home for my father to sign. And we had a headmaster, believe me. He was a strict disciplinarian. He was one of those, wherever you were in the school, he was stood next to you. I gave this to my father, who gave me a good hiding, sent me upstairs, and then I went to school the next day, the headmaster read out all the people he wanted to see. And lo, Ben Adams' name led all the rest. You know, the famous poem. So I went to see him, and I always remember it. It was a moment of trepidation. I was outside the door, and he didn't knock harder than that. The door was open. I knew he was in. He didn't answer. So I thought, you didn't answer, knock twice. And then a voice said, come. Not come in or anything. And he was writing like this. I can see him now. And I came in and stood in front of him. And without looking up, he said, those words which they're imprinted in my head. Now what am I going to do with you? So he said, and before you say anything else, I've had a word with your father on the phone this morning. I thought, oh my God. It was going worse. Anyway, cut a long story short, I got what was called the Saturday afternoon detention. And I had to write an essay on how I'm going to improve both in work and behaviour. And I was in a pretty clever class. There's 6 lads out of our form went to Oxford or Cambridge. And I went from 23rd in the form to, I think, about 10th or 12th. And he sent for me again, headmaster, who was called Frank Holgate, who I got to really like in later years. And he said, right, now we've found you out already. That's what he said. Right, anything less, and it'll be 2 Saturdays. And even more behives. That means you get the stick as well. It sort of straightened me out a little bit, really.
But you're at a rugby-only school, so how do you end up on the books of Blackpool as a footballer if you're at a rugby-only school? Because presumably they didn't play football at the school.
No. Well, I always used to run around a lot. I always ran. Wherever I went, I used to run. I used to like running. If I didn't feel so good, I could go for a run and I could put a smile on my face. So I would quite often, you know, run night time. And then during the times that get free at weekends and so on, play on the beach with my friends who lived nearby to where we lived. My father came home after the war and he rented a little shop and he lived there and we could get to the beach, and we had 1 or 2 very good players. We had like old Kenny Booth who's signed for Blackpool with me. His father had been a pro footballer. He was a better player than me. Played 1 game in the first team. We drew 2 each at Burnley. He scored the equalising goal and he played really well. And the following week he was back in the reserves. Sort of broke him. But basically it went on from there, playing on the beach, and I nearly always had a little tennis ball in my pocket. And just push it along the street and take it, you know, and play with it. And that's how I learned to become a footballer.
And the game that you were spotted in, you said you liked running. You were actually playing on the wing, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I went to the wing. But what happened was, it was the PE teacher at Arnold School who said to me, he was called George Neal. He said, I've seen you play football around, kicking a ball around. He says, they're having a match at Bloomfield Road, he said, on Friday afternoon. I think it was, I'm not sure when it was going towards Easter time. Go and ask him if you can get a game. He said, have you got any boots? I said, well, yeah, I thought I had, you know. So I said, yeah, I think I have. On the Friday I went. They had everybody's name down except mine. The 2 men who were taking the practice, one was called Alec Munro, who played for Blackpool just before, you know, he'd retired then, and Alec Roxburgh, who was a goalkeeper for Blackpool. They were picking the teams down and they were 1 short, a winger. So he says, can you play on the wing? I said, oh yeah. He said, have you really played on the wings? So I said, yes. It's a lie. So he said, anyway, he says, right, okay, play on the left wing. I thought, oh cracky, because I was right-footed. Anyway, the team I was playing for won 4-1, and I scored all 4, incredibly. And, you know, I was never, the one thing you would never latch against me, a goal scorer.
How many games of organised football had you played by that stage? Because you said you learnt to play on the beach. Were you playing for a team? Were you playing for anyone?
Well, they tried to form a team at the Sunday school, but it didn't last. Played, you know, a few games like that. No, I would say I learned to play on the beach.
So you hadn't played much organised football at all?
No. The trick was, you see, I was coming in on my right foot most of the time. And this lad who was playing against me, you know, he was the right fullback. He was a bit stone dead on it, and I soon worked that out. And the ball was coming over from the right side, where we were particularly strong, this group we had. And I was quite often left on my own, you know, just put it away. And yeah, my old friend Ray Charnley, of course, who was no longer with us, unfortunately. He was my roommate for 10 years. And I told him this story. Can't believe that story.
So you go to Blackpool, of course. You were never an apprentice?
No, I wasn't an apprentice. I stayed at school till I did A-levels. I got all my O-levels, 3 A-levels, history, geography and economics. And I got accepted at Liverpool University to read economics. What we had to do in those days, we had to go in the army. And this was another turning point I had, really. I left school. I joined the King's Own Royal Regiment, trained there. I played football, in the army and so on. And then the Korean War had ended, but there was still, like when wars end, it goes on for a bit longer, and it seemed to go on, and we were still sending troops out to the Far East. And in fact, a few of the lads who were with me, there was 90 of us, about 84 or 5 were sent out to the Far East. They went to Hong Kong. So we had 2 weeks leave, which I had. And what they did, they took the top 5 names off and they stayed behind because they asked me what I'd like to do. Because I'd been at Arnold School, I'd been in the cadet force, and I had A-levels, going to university. They asked me if I was interested in getting a commission. I said, no, not really. I'd rather be a PT instructor or something to do with sport. So I got parked off to Wales, to Oswestry. I was on the PE course there. And then I went to Aldershot. And then I came back. And then I used to train the recruits on PE games. That part was quite good. I ran the football team. We won the North West District League, which pleased our commanding officer because he'd never won it before. That was it really, the army.
So how did you get back to Blackpool then, and to becoming a pro after being in the army?
Well, it's an incredible story because I was at Lancaster, I was within reasonable distance if I could get home. Just getting home was the problem. It was 2 trains in those days, Lancaster to Preston, Preston to Blackpool. But I was fortunate, I had a friend who lived here. He actually lived around that corner. He was an accountant in Lancaster, and I used to ring him up, and he'd come and pick me up, bring me down. And I got 1 or 2 games. I'd played for 1 or 2 third team games for Blackpool, and then it was in a third team game. I was the right winger. I was still playing on the wing from the 4 goals, and I wasn't having that much success. Anyway, our right back got carried off. I remember our trainer at the time, Sam Jones, said, "Nip between the 2 positions." So I said, okay, and I played there. The next time the team went up, I was right back. So it's been a chapter of accidents, really, as opposed to, a planned career. But I think all of it's down to, frankly, put it bluntly, the fact I could run.
All lined up, Blackpool in the dark shirts kicking off for this 1953 Cup final, and away they go. There is little Ernie Taylor himself. And now here comes Mortensen. Out to the great maestro Matthews himself.
Tell us about Blackpool's greatest day then. Stanley Matthews gets his Cup Winners' Medal at long last in 1953. Where were you?
I went with the reserve team and everybody. We all went. Yeah, they took us down on the day. We stood up on the Kop behind the goal that Stan Mortensen scored 2. It was incredible because, they'd been in 48 and 51 and lost both times. And this was coronation year, of course. And everybody's dream was for Stanley Matthews to get his cup medal. That's why it became known as the Matthews final. And Stan Mortensen, of course, scored a hat-trick.
And everyone easily forgets that, yeah.
And everybody called it the Matthews. He's still the only player ever to score a hat-trick in an FA Cup final at Wembley. It's incredible, that, when you think about it, isn't it?
There he is, Mortensen. It's a lovely goal! Bolton 3, Blackpool 3. And Bolton now really struggling with a badly depleted side. They've got to pull something out of the bag now.
Morty was the town hero. Stan Matthews was the talisman. Didn't work with that maestro. That's what they called him, maestro. But Morty was lovable, brave, fast, scored goals,
Was he irritated that it was the Matthews final?
No. Morty would never get irritated about anything like that. Never. Because he always used to say, I'd be nothing without Matthews.
There's the man who's really fighting for his cup medal. Could he score the winning goal now himself? It's there! Perry! Perry! What a final!
Do you remember feeling a great sense of relief for Stanley Matthews that at last he'd won it?
I think I did, because I still think he's England's best ever player. Taking everything, you know, the time he played. I'm not saying he'd be the same player today as he was then, but take everything. He was fit. He was so fit. Do you know, I never saw him out of breath. You couldn't give him the ball enough. He was impeccable in his behaviour on the field. He always used to say, if they kick me, I know I've got them. The other thing was too, he was innovative. He could do things that other people couldn't do. And, you know, and above anything else, he just had fantastic skill.
There it is! And where's Stanley Matthews? There's Joe Smith running on to him. There's Stanley. At long last he's done it. And everybody cheering him. And what a great final this has been. There's Joe Smith with Matthews.
What was he like as a person?
Unassuming. I mean, it's the first goal I ever scored. This will tell you a bit about him. We were playing Leicester.
So, because you were playing behind him, of course.
Oh, yeah. I played behind him for about 5 years. Yeah. He used to say things like, I'm making you into a half-decent player. He always have jokes, you know, about that. But when I scored my first goal, he wasn't playing. We were losing 3-2 to Leicester. And at the last minute, it comes to me on the edge of the box what the heck I was doing there, because I was playing right back. I can't remember. And I hit it, and it's one of those that just went in. So I jumped up in the air, you know, 18, 19-year-old, wherever I was, and I was running around and so on. It finished 3-3. It was time up, virtually. And I was a bit full of myself, and the crowd were all, good old Jim, and I was going off, and waving, you know, as a teenager would. I went off, and I sat down, and everybody went out. And Matthews came in the dressing room, when everybody was sort of out there, and it was just me and him. He just put his hand on my shoulders and said, don't get up. So he says, what was that all about at the end? So I says, what? Town hero. And I thought he was joking, you know, so he says, yeah. There was still 2 minutes of injury time to go. We could have won that match, but you were still full of scoring your goal. He says, what if they'd have got a corner in your mind had still been on that goal? You've got to be prepared to be ready. All this celebration, he says, no. They know who scored. They're all happy for you. I was. He says, you know, concentration. After a goal, concentration. Get back in your position. We could have won that match. We drew 3 each. I went.
You shrunk in your chair. Was that one of many lessons you learnt from playing with him and behind him?
Yeah, he said to me, you never get anything out of retaliating. Weakness of character. And the other thing he always said too, you know, was you've got to be fit to play. People are actually paying to see how fit you are. Well, the manager once said, Joe Smith actually once said to us in a team talk, in all seriousness, any queries at all? Some bright spark said at the back, I think it was Roy Gratrix, he said, what if plan A doesn't work? And Joe, in all seriousness, said, well, do what we always ball, get the ball to Stan.
If in doubt, give the ball. Sort of shouting to you quite often, Jim, wasn't it? Give it to Stanley.
Any trouble, yeah. Well, I was giving him these 5-yard passes, you know, giving him the ball, and everybody keeps saying, you know, his pass rate is fantastic.
You'd say yours would be over 5 yards.
I tell you what he was good at. He was good at getting himself in possession to get the ball as well, because he was quite often double marked. And that's how we started the overlapping full-back game. People said, oh, it was my innovation. Well, it wasn't really, other than that quite often used to play 2 men on him, full-back, and then the number 11 or the left winger would go back and double up. So if you got past him, you'd have another one. So I said to Stan, in all humbleness one day, I said, the two of them were stood like that. If I went round the outside, put the ball through, you know, I might be able to get to the ball. And he looked at me and went...
Just a little nod.
That means no. So I went back, and we were playing Luton, and we were winning 2 or 3-0, I remember. I got the ball, I gave it to Stan, he went up, their 2 lads dropped back. So I set off round the outside, and Stan put the ball through, right through the gap, and I was through, on my own, coming in at the right side. Anyway, I shot wide. So we go in the dressing room after the game, thankfully we won. And Joe Smith, the manager, said to me, what was that all about? I said, what? wing play. What's all that about? I said, well, I saw space, and I thought, you know. He said, I don't really notice. The number 7 we've got has done quite well without your help so far. He wasn't very keen on it. It was only when Joe went, you know, that we liberated it a bit more. But there it was. With England, you know, we started doing it.
Jimmy, we associate with Blackpool forever, of course. But Matt Busby wanted to take you to Manchester United in 1957.
Yeah. Well,
now, it's not clearly today. You'd have had an agent, you'd have had an army of PR people, if you'd wanted to, manoeuvring that move to Old Trafford. But it's very different in those days when clubs owned your registration. You couldn't go anywhere if Blackpool didn't want you to go anywhere.
No, you couldn't move, no. When I was in the army, I was very friendly with Duncan Edwards. They were all my group. Eddie Coleman, Bill Folks. They were all in the army team with me. I forget how it got out anyway in the press. He knew that I knew Duncan quite well. And this is Joe Smith. Anyway, Matt Busby had made an approach to see if I'd be interested in going, you know. And they used to train quite often at the Norberg Hydro in Blackpool, Manchester United. And I've been up there to see Duncan and Eddie Coleman. Joe Smith said to me, well, Manchester United have inquired about you. So I said, yeah. He said, well, you tell your friend Edwards, if he wants to tap anybody, tell him to come and tap me. Now, off. That was what I got.
Did you want to go?
It hadn't really entered my mind, really, to be honest. It was a bit of a surprise. I didn't believe it until I actually heard it. Because, you know, it was the Busby Babes. Had I gone, just before Munich.
It was the year before.
So it was a February. Well, this was at the end of 57, I would think.
On the fringe of a Munich airport lies the wreckage of an airliner, still smouldering from a crash in which 21 people were killed. Tragedy enough at any time. But in that plane were a group of young men who were almost the personal friends of millions. Manchester United, the finest soccer team Britain has produced since the war. And 7 of them died in the crash. 10 others, as well as their famous manager, Matt Busby, were injured.
Talk to us about Duncan Edwards. It's a name that everybody knows, and everybody knows that he died at Munich. Tell us about what he was like as a person, and tell us particularly what he was like as a player.
Well, I always had a bit of a soft spot for him because he's such a good player. He's one of those players who had terrific power. When we played the Czechs, I was playing the Czechs in Bratislava. He terrified them. I think he scored 2. I think we won 3-0 or something. And he was running forward. I mean, he got 1 goal, and he was running, and he ran towards them from the left-hand side of the field, just left of centre, and he hit it first time. And I thought, why didn't they come out and tackle him? This is the Czech team, remember, that got through to the World Cup final in '62, and they all looked at him. He could intimidate you because he was powerful, but the one thing very few say, he was very skillful with the ball, very skillful. I always remember when we were in the army, we went down to Shrewsbury and he was playing with the ball. And the first time I ever realised he could do anything with it. You know, flick it up, bring it down, turn. You have to remember we were young. And, you know, there was time for him to develop. He was still only a young chap.
You're quite shy?
I wouldn't say shy, no. No, he's not shy. He had an outgoing side, and he could laugh. He could laugh very easily. He played against the Germans in Berlin, and we won 3-1. I wasn't playing. I read somewhere afterwards, I forget who the manager of Germany was, said, he's phenomenal. And he was.
Near the German goal mouth, left half Duncan Edwards cuts through the defence line like a knife through butter. He beats Wafers and shoots, and it's in the net. A beautiful goal.
He would have had a great bearing on the next few years through the World Cups. I mean, so in Munich, you know, we lost half the team. 58, we'd have won it in 58 and 62. When you think, you know, we lost Tommy Taylor, who was a good centre forward, Roger Byrne, good full-back, you know, good player, Duncan Edwards, David Pegg, Eddie Coleman. They were all top-line players.
Duncan Edwards injured, Bill Fuchs injured. Mark Jones killed. Ray Wood injured. Eddie Coleman killed. David Pegg killed. Dennis Violet injured, Tommy Taylor killed. Roger Byrne killed. Bill Whelan killed. John Barry injured. At the time of going to press, Matt Busby was fighting for his life. The team secretary, Walter Crickmer, was killed.
Because Manchester United had tapped you up in inverted commas, do you think about the fact that had you gone to Manchester United then, you would have been on the plane? Do you think about that at all?
No, never really thought about that. No. It was bad enough as it was. I remember where I was when it happened. You know, we'd been doing afternoon training, and so we'd been kept at the ground during the day and afternoon training. The news came that, you know, it was hard to believe at the time. You have to remember the war had hardened us a bit.
But you're in no doubt Duncan Edwards would have been one of the greats of English football.
Oh yes, I'd have to believe that. He imposed himself on, you know, we played against him. We were going for the title, Blackpool, at one stage with United. And I remember I was going down the field and he absolutely floored me. He took the ball and he took me as well. And I'm on the ground and I'm on the ground, looked at him, I said, "Thanks very much." I can't tell you what he said. But the point was, you know, he was a terrific competitor. Terrific competitor.
Tell us about your first full cap.
Yeah, I'd been in the Young England team for 3 years, probably. I do think that is a good grounding. We were on a tour. We were going to play in Italy and we were going to play in Germany, and the England team were getting ready to go and play on the South American tour. So Walter Winterbottom came with us because before they set off, he'd come and watch us. We were playing in Italy. Big game. It's a big crowd, Milan, and we won 3-0. He decided after the match to take Jimmy Greaves and me off the tour to go and play with the first team in Brazil. And instead of getting ready to fly off to Germany, he was with us on the overnight train where we picked up a Swiss airplane, 4 of us in the plane with the Swiss manager and his wife. Flew to London, picked the team up, flew to Brazil. I had to ring up when I got, says, "I'm not coming home, I'm going to Brazil." And they had no left fullback. Walter Winterbottom said to me, "Have you played left fullback?" And I said, "Not really, no." Well, he said, "I think you better manage it." So I said, "Okay." We got Don Howe was right back. Myself, Billy Wright was centre half. It was a transitional period for the England team. American half, that's where I made my debut. And they scored in the first minute. They scored a goal and I hadn't touched the ball. I thought, blimey, you know, it's a good start, that. And it was one of those days, you know, when we came lined up, it was, you know, at the time, but they just won the World Cup in '58, you know, sort of thing. It was Pelly and all that group. We were lined up, and I can always remember there were helicopters flying over, rockets going, the band were playing, the samba bands, everything was bouncing, dancers around the ground. And my head was all over the place, you know. Billy Wright was trying to, you know, calm us all down, but, you know. Anyway, we lost 2-0, I think we lost. We played well, actually, in the second half. I got going second half. But by then we were 2 down. But I played then against Peru, Mexico, and USA on that tour. All left back.
Your first 4 caps were all left back?
Out of position.
You said that your wartime experiences shaped you, as I think probably shaped all your generation. Yeah. So my question is, when you're lining up making your England debut, you know, we like to think it's the most emotional moment of your life and you're thinking of your mum and dad and your family and your friends and isn't this incredible? You're just thinking, it's a game of football, here we go.
Well, I was on edge, obviously. I was still young. First game, playing against the world champions on their own pitch. And Billy Wright was trying to concentrate, you know, trying to get the concentration right. That was the thing as much as anything. So really, it took a little bit of it to steam in. Once we got going, the crowd, it was unbelievable, the crowd figure, but it was absolutely packed. It was a totally different world for somebody who'd been in the army, gone out to play in Italy, and here we are.
So by the time you went back for the World Cup in Chile in 1962, at least you had been exposed on that tour.
Oh, yeah.
To some of the crowds, to some of the environment, to some of the terrain, because you stayed in some quite Spartan places in that World Cup, didn't you?
Oh, 62, yeah. We got off the plane, Santiago. We got a train up to another destination. Then we got into a single track carriage, and that took us to a mining camp, the Braden Copper Company.
Up in the hills?
Up in the hills. And we stayed there for 2 weeks before we played. The only entertainment was what we could do ourselves, playing cards or whatever. No television, remember. There was a golf course, a 9-hole golf course roundabout, which was owned by the Braden Copper Company, which we'd go to. And there was a sort of a cinema, which occasionally showed a film that we might understand, you know.
Were you bored?
No, I wasn't bored. I've never been bored with footballers, no. We always found something.
In that World Cup, you reached the quarter-final. You lost to Brazil on your debut. You lost to Brazil there on their way to winning the World Cup back-to-back.
Yeah.
Not a bad Brazilian team to lose to be fair.
No, you know, they won it. But the point was, they were good. They were a good team. But frankly, we played well. We had a real knockdown. Before we set off, we lost Bobby Smith, which was a real blow to us. And then when we got there, we lost our centre-half, Peter Swan. He got terrible stomach trouble. He was in hospital, never played a game for us. That's how young Bobby Moore came into the team. Bob didn't have Peter's experience and know-how and his partnership with Ron Flowers, you know. I mean, he did all right, nothing to do with that. What I'm saying is it was just, we lost 2 key players there. We played well. We missed 2 good chances in that game. And funny, you know, when you look back, when I thought about it, I thought the Czechs would have been next. We'd already beaten them 4-1 in Bratislava the year before. And I thought to myself, this is it. I thought, we're going to do this. 62. I honestly believed it. And I've never been one who's, you know, always been that overconfident. But I just thought we could do it. I think it was around my best time, between 60 and sort of 66. And a few of our players were very much the same. And the game changed on a free kick.
Is Didi coming? No. Garincha. And Baba has scored. It's 2-1. Baba has made it 2-1.
From that point, their crowd had never been quite so nuts. Suddenly all the drums started beating and the samba came out, you know. And they beat us in the quarter-final.
Now Didi. Zito is in unmarked position. Garincha now coming to the middle, and there's Amarildo to Garincha. It's a goal, a beautiful goal by Garincha. Oh, that was a scorcher.
We went back to the hotel, and that is the most disappointing night I've had in football. I was so sure we could do it. So sure we could do it.
You thought England could win the World Cup?
Oh, I did, yeah. I thought we could do it. That was why when we came to play in 66, I thought we'd win it.
You were voted in the 62 World Cup, you were voted the best right back, so you were the best right back in the world.
Mm.
Did you get a little memento? Did you get a trophy?
Well, we actually left as the semi-final started. Can you believe this today? 6 of us were sent from Santiago Airport to New York, overnight, Manchester. London Brigade came back, the route planned. We went early. So if somebody's got that trophy...
Have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen a photo of it?
No.
No, just an acknowledgement. Best right back in the world.
That's it, yeah.
Well, that was great, but even greater was to come because Walter Winterbottom steps down, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Alf Ramsey becomes manager.
Yeah.
You become England captain.
I was captain 6. Because what happened was Johnny Haynes, he got injured in a car crash on Blackpool Promenade. I'd been captain of the young England team, so I became captain. I was captain 62, 3, 4.
Were you captain Alf's first match?
Yes.
Against France, yeah.
Yeah, we played France and we lost 5-2. And, well, he changed the team round, to be honest, and he did.
You did well to survive that then, Jim.
Well, the thing was, actually we shouldn't have played. It was freezing, it was cold, and it was in the old Column Stadium. and the floodlights were poor. We were probably poor as well. Anyway, I sat down on the bus, and Alf got in the bus, and he sat next to me, and I thought, oh. So he said, after the bus had got going on its way to the airport, he said, do we always play like that? So I said, no. I said, it must be a one-off. Well, he said, that's the first bit of decent news I've had all night. That's what he said.
How would you characterise your relationship with Alf Ramsey? So he's made you captain.
He was straightforward. He was, in his approach, really, in terms of his word game, it was fairly simple, really. Everything was one-line throwaways, one sentence, basically. But he could be quite cutting. I remember we played against Scotland at Wembley. The ball came to me on the edge of the box, on the edge of our box, and as it came, I tried to turn it away. And as I turned it away, I always remember kicked the ball into Jim Baxter's legs, and it hit his legs, and it ran back this way favourably. So I was on the outside now, as opposed to being on the inside. So Jim Baxter got, and they crossed the ball, and they scored. I thought to myself, oh dear. So I got into the dressing room, and Alf came over to me, and he said, you won't do that again, will you? So I said, no, I won't. No, he said, you won't. That was it. That was the end of that conversation. And every time the ball came to me in that situation, I just woofed it with my left foot down the field.
So you were Alf's captain, and obviously by this stage, everybody knows the World Cup will be held in England in 1966. Yeah. And you're captain up till 1964 when you get injured.
Yeah. Last day of the season.
Last day of the season, 63-64, you get injured. World Cup's 2 years away.
It was even worse than that, because I was playing quite well at the time. You know when you're playing well. And we went to Ipswich on the last day of the season. I had my bag with me, my suitcase ready to go to what was the Little World Cup in South America, to Brazil. Alf was in the stand, it was at Ipswich, and the arrangement was all the lads would come home and I'd go with Alf to London and join the team. I was running down the field, there was nobody anywhere near me. I just suddenly got this pain. And I thought, oh my God. And I just had to stop, dead in my tracks. One or two of the crowd laughed, but I just I couldn't move. I was struggling. And I thought, what have I done here? You know, Anyway, cut a long story short, they had to stretch me off. And instead of going to Brazil, I finished up in Blackpool Hospital. And what I'd done, I'd got a bit more than a hernia. It was like a ruptured groin. Today they can repair it. In those days, it wasn't easy. And I had to ring up Alf and say to him, you know, I'm not going to make it. He said, do you want to leave it a few days and see if you can go? I said, okay, I'll leave it. Left it 2 or 3 days. I got out of bed, but that was about it. You know, I said, no, there's no way I'm going to make it. And that's when I missed out.
So you can't go to the Little World Cup in 1964?
No, I spent all summer recovering here. And I found out in the end, after I come out of the treatment and so on, I used to run on the beach. I used to wade into the sea, wade against the waves, you know, to try and strengthen my leg up. And I got back playing again, probably, I don't know when it was, probably September, October, I don't know. But when I came back, I was all right. I think George might have come in the team then, I can't remember. I think George, he did all right, so, you know, and I was sort of recovering. Anyway, it got through to the beginning of 66. I hadn't played in the England team for over a year now. I saw Alf once, somewhere to match, he never did anything. But then I saw him, I played it somewhere in the Midlands. After the game, he came to see me. And he said to me, how are you? So I said, good. He says, are you fit for the World Cup? So I said, okay. I must have been the first player ever to be told he was going to be selected. That's absolutely a true story. He said, I'd like you to be fit for the World Cup. So I said, oh, that's great.
But you knew, obviously, because of Bobby Moore, that you were never going to be captain again.
Well, the first game I came back, I played against Yugoslavia at Wembley. I was captain. Well, you know when you play well. I played well. They were a good team, Yugoslavia, you know, the Serbs, the Croats, all them, you know, they're all lunched together in those days. And they had some good players. We beat them 2-0. And then we went on the pre-tour to the World Cup. Anyway, we played in Finland. I was playing well, winning 3-0. And right at the end of the match, a guy comes and he stood on my foot. I sort of carried on a bit, and I thought, crack, it's sore this. Anyway, they gave me an x-ray, and my little toe had a crack down it. It wasn't too bad, but Al said, well, you're not playing in the next warm-ups, you know, you've got to be fit for the World Cup start. I never played again. He kept the defence for the next game, and they were the best part of the team, really, when they started, and he never changed the back four.
Did you find that very hard to deal with?
No.
No?
Not hard, not really hard, no. Of course we wanted to play. Of course you wanted to play, but you've got... It's something you have no control over anyway. I had no control over it. The back four were doing okay. I could see that. Players are not blind. And the thing is, you know, they were doing all right, and I presume he thinks, well, this is the group. I wouldn't have picked the team Alf Ramsey had picked. But that doesn't mean to say, you know, what matters is what the end product is.
But you'd been captain against Yugoslavia,
and against
come back
Finland,
into the team.
and against Finland.
You played really well. You were captain against Finland. You must be thinking at that stage, hang on a second, I'm playing well and I'm captain. I could be captain of England in the World Cup in England in a couple of months' time here.
Well, I was too busy concentrating on what I was doing at the time. I was one of these players, when I played, I was...
But my point being, once you'd got the injury and you didn't get back in the team...
No, I hoped to play, of course I
think
did.
most people listening to me would be unbelievably frustrated and insanely jealous.
Well, no, I wasn't. I wasn't. Say jealous would be wrong. If I'd have felt the other players were inferior or something like that, I'd say, yeah. You see, like a lot of other clubs, we'd never won anything at Blackpool. We've been close. Like with runners up to Manchester United, in, you know, in the old First Division. So we hadn't quite had as much as some other players. We didn't. I think the other thing is too, it depends on your attitude as a player. It could have been, you know, it could have been much worse. But I did what I thought I could do. If you don't pick me, that's it. I think too many get into all kinds of rhapsodies about this, and you know, you're either in or you don't. Football is not a game that travels like that. Football travels like that.
Ups and downs, peaks and troughs. Yeah.
Yeah. If you draw graphs, you know, it's very rare you get what I call an equilibrium that's nice and straightforward. There's always something. I've been unlucky once or twice really with injuries. And
that's as unlucky as it gets, Jimmy, to miss captaining your country in your home World Cup. I think
that's right.
Most people would think that's as unlucky as it gets.
Well, you know, I had been there. I had done it, and I had got there. And then, but people said to me, I always remember Mike Ingham saying to me, he said, the one thing I've always wanted to ask you, he said, at the end of the World Cup in '66, when it was all over, you were smiling on the field with Bobby. He said, you must have been saying, you know. I said, no, isn't it better that we won? Isn't it better that we won? It is better we won, because today people look back and they say, well, you remember the World Cup squad. It's not the same as being in the 11 who played in the final. But the point was, it's better that they won. It is now more than ever, isn't it?
Well, Jimmy, frankly, that's the measure of you as a man.
There's Bobby Moore of England, Cohen, Ball, Banks, Wilson, Hurst, Charlton, Bobby Charlton, Peters, Stiles and Jackie Charlton bringing up the rear. And West Germany captained by Uwe Seeler, who 12 years ago made his debut on this very ground for West Germany when he was just 18. And at that time, West Germany were the world champions, having won the World Cup in 1954. They were fourth in 1958. England never before have got past the quarter-final stage.
I can picture in a very smart red V-neck on the bench on that sunny day in the cup final.
Yeah, that's right. It was
you and Norman Hunter, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, Norman. Yeah, he was superstitious. He brought up with Don Revie. He had to wear this and he had to do this, and he must go out at 3 o'clock, and he goes number 3 in the lineup. You know, that sort of thing. We had none of that. Anyway, we won the first game, and I went in this red jumper, and I was going with Norman. He says, "Where's your red jumper?" So I says, "Get your red jumper on," and that's how it started.
And what are your memories of the final?
Alan Ball, because he was a Blackpool player. In that game, I thought he was the engine. He was forthright in everything. The only thing is, I was watching him playing and I thought, we're never going to keep him at Blackpool. soon after he went to Everton. Yeah. That was the first memory I had. And the other one was, we didn't sit on the bench through the game. We were in the stand. I was like the leader of the other pack. I was in the end seat, so they put me in the end seat. Alf said to me, whatever happens, you get the lads up and they can come down to the bench. And when I'm all down there at the end, come what may. We were sat there, till 90.
So it's 2-1 to England at
We
this
were
stage.
winning 2-1. So this guy said, yeah, so I said, come on lads, and we all got up and walked down. And I was the first one out under the royal box, and they're all following me. We went out, and as I got in, Germany equalised. So I don't believe this lot behind me saw that goal, but there we go.
Every Englishman coming back, every German going forward. Now, will the Germans snatch a dramatic equaliser and bring us to extra time? It's Emmerich coming in. And he's... Oh, yes, they must do! They have done! Weber has scored in the last seconds.
They equalised. That was the one abiding memory I had. I thought, oh my goodness. So I went and I saw Alf and he went, oh, sit here. And I sat right next to him. I'm right behind him. You can imagine how Alf felt. So we just sat there,
We are now in injury time. And there goes the whistle for the end of 90 minutes, so you can see how near England were to the World Championship. But now they have another 30 minutes.
I was down at ground level. You're ice trained to live at ground level, really. And I couldn't quite believe the Germans in the latter part of the game. If you ever look at the last goal, you get this lovely pass from Bobby.
For 4-2, yep.
Yeah, he knocked it over the top. First of all, that really was a terrific ball, that really. In that circumstance, 3-2, we're holding on, death, ball goes over the top and Jeff runs after it. And they've got a player at left full back. And if you ever watch it, he runs back like that. His job was to come across and
he
shut
just
him
runs
down.
straight towards his own goal rather than try and cut him off. Yeah.
Alan Ball ran in there, and Alan Ball was looking, he was still running Bally. And this guy probably was thinking, well, I'll keep my eye on Alan Ball. His first job is to stop that. And of course, Jeff finished it.
And here comes Hurst. He's got some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over. It is now. It's four.
It was strange, really. We sat there, and all the players who were not playing, were all thrilled. That moment, I know they were. Say whatever they like, they want to play, but they were all thrilled, I think.
The reserves are on. There's George Easton. There's Jimmy Armfield. There's John Kennelly. This great moment in English sporting history as Bobby Moore goes up to get the World Cup. Alf Ramsey walking forward to shake his hand. There is Alf Ramsey, the first sign of emotion from this man who has organised this victory.
It was a bit trying, not getting a game, when you don't play. It is trying. Of course it is. But that's part of it.
And it shows a sign of the times. You've told me this before. That night, you have a big dinner in the Royal Kensington Hotel.
Royal Garden.
Royal Garden Hotel in Kensington. But Anne and the other wives, they're not with you, are they? They're a couple of floors down in a separate room.
They put the women in another room. And to make it even, the women of today, they were given a present. And they were all given a pair of scissors. When we had the get-together this year of, the 50 years, last year, for 50 years of World Cup, somebody says, do you remember that? I said, I've been reminded about it for the last 50 years.
On a daily basis.
Everybody in Wembley collapsed laughing when I said it, but the point was... But they did that, but then eventually they sort of allowed them to come and talk to us. But it was quite odd, really. It was quite odd when you think about it. Today it wouldn't just happen.
That's 1966. We could leave it at that. Where did you go afterwards? You went. I hope you went deep into the night in the West End or somewhere.
Well, funnily enough, we had nothing planned to go anywhere. Bobby Moore said, "I've invited to the Playboy Club." So they put my arm up my back, and there was Bobby and his wife, Anne, and myself, and they were pouring champagne over and whatnot, you know. But I would have preferred sort of everybody to stay together. Because the next day, we were all on our way home. We all went for the television programme. But we all went there and we had a lunch. After the lunch was over, Alf got all the players together in a room, no bigger than this, 22 of us, with the staff in this room. We're all sort of cramped together. And he said, we've never talked about money. And we all knew that there was £22,000 to be divided between us. And I said, well, we sort of agreed really what was going to happen, but I didn't like jumping in because I hadn't played. And Bob said, whatever we do, share and share alike. So it's everybody gets £1,000. Come whether you played, whether you didn't. Is that okay? He said, yeah. Alf said, that's fair enough. And he said, okay, I'll see you all soon. And that was it, finish. And that was the only time money was mentioned from the start to the finish.
You got taxed on it?
£764 or something like that.
Not that you were counting.
Wouldn't even buy me a second-hand car. But it was.
You did it for the glory, Jim.
Well, they did really. It was. I felt it was crucial with it being in England. I did. It's turned out it was crucial.
You can't have thought that day, could you?
No.
You cannot have thought that England would not reach another final, let alone win. The Euros weren't as big then as they are now. They were still going, obviously. But you cannot have thought this will be the last time England will be in a final.
On our programme, over the last 50 years, I must have said, every time we've gone to the World Cup, you know, when I've gone with Radio 2 and then 5 Live, whatever it's been, I've always felt we had a chance when we set off. I've never been right yet.
Let's talk about the next phase of your life, retirement and management. Retirement you played against your great friend Bobby Charlton for your last game, your last game for Blackpool, 1971.
I'd had a bit of knee trouble, knee was a bit sore. I could have played, Blackburn Rovers wanted me to carry on playing, and I thought, no, time is right. It's come to better players than me. And then I was offered the job at Bolton.
And they're in the old third division.
Yes, they were. They'd just been relegated.
You went straight into that?
Yeah.
Literally finished 70-71, and you were straight to
Bolton.
You know, when you're a player, they always say that you're a player, you have to look after yourself primarily. You've got to be fit, do your job in the team. Suddenly you're taking on the whole club and obviously the results and everybody's concerns.
I did go on the FA coaching courses. That was quite often frowned on, you know. Oh, yeah. Footballers aren't there. Footballers, you know. Tony Waiters, who was our goalkeeper, he and I went on the FA coaching courses. We got the first licence and then we got the A licence. We used to go round at night time and form coaching associations in the area, and I thought it was a way forward. I always thought it was a way forward, rather than turning up and everybody expecting to play like Stan Matthews. A lot of the really great players have not come through coaching schemes, you know. You can name hundreds of them playing today. When you think about Maradona and Pelé and Messi to a point as well. There's not many footballers come through university life. It's not that type of thing. But I thought there's more to it than that. You know, I'd like to see the defence lined up a bit better. You know, think about what we're trying to do. And anyway, I carried it out at Bolton. I arranged for 2 pre-season friendlies. I got 2 of my friends to bring their teams to come. I got Dave Sexton to bring Chelsea. Jimmy Adamson brought Burnley. And we beat them both in a pre-season friendly. And I thought, I'm looking at these players who've been relegated to the 3rd division. They're a bit better than I thought. By November, we were about 5th off the bottom. We had a chairman called Jack Banks, who was a real sage. He said, what are you doing with this? I said, well, what I'm doing, I've got some good young players, and what I'm doing, I'm working on them Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons myself. I said, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. He said, well, I wasn't on that building site. That's what he said. He was a builder. He said, I wasn't on that building site, but he says, if they're any good, he said, have some damn guts in you. Put them in the team. Anything's better than that rubbish. Anyway, cut a long story short, I put them in, 3 of them in for one game, and we won 2-1. Lucky as hell, but we won. they started to play these kids, and they did all right. And then gradually we got them playing in a style, and the other third division teams couldn't handle it. We won the match with 2.
And did you love the whole tactics, the week, being responsible for everything?
I did everything.
Did you love it all at that stage?
Well, I was under pressure, really. To say I loved it would be not wrong, but I enjoyed what I was doing. The first year, we moved from the bottom and we finished about 6th. And the second year, we won it with about 3 matches to spare. And 1 or 2 people came to me and asked me if I'd, interested in moving. And I wasn't really interested in moving. I was quite happy at Bolton. And then Everton came to see if I was interested in going. I went over to see John Moores. I went to his house and we had some lunch. And we talked about football. He was talking about his paintings and all this sort of stuff. And then he says, "Do you fancy the job at Everton?" So I said, I've only been at Bolton 2 years, really, 2 and a bit. Well, he said, "I think you can do this job here." So I said, "I'll think about it. I'll ring you tomorrow." I said, "Don't leave it longer than tomorrow." So I said, "All right." So I went to him and rang him the next day. I said, "I don't think I'm ready for that." He said, "Okay, put the phone down."
Was that the right decision?
Well, I left it for about another 3 or 4 months, and I got the team established in what's the Championship now, the old 2nd division. And then out of the blue, Leeds came for me.
The appointment of Brian Clough on July the 22nd had not been the unanimous decision of the Leeds board. His dismissal 44 days later came at a time when the manager's greatest ally, Bob Roberts, was abroad.
Why is he going, Mr. Cousins? I mean, there is no answer to that question.
Because we've been spoilt by Don Revie.
The guy who takes my position, I hope that, he will find it a little bit smoother and everything will go well for him.
Brian had been there. I played with Cloughie in Football League teams. Well, I knew what he was like. This was a team that won the Championship last year. Currently, they were next to the bottom after about 12 or 14 matches. I can't remember how many there were. And I knew 1 or 2 of the players and what they were capable of and so on. And 1 or 2 had better track records than I had. So I went over and I spoke to them. And I met them and I liked the club. And I thought, yeah, why not? Well, in my time, they weren't anything really until sort of Don got there, till Don Revie got there. Don Revie had taken over the England team. And Don Revie had asked me to go to London. And Don said to me, "I'd like to come with me to look after the England team. And you can look after the young England team, then you can come with us when we go on, So I was offered the job really as his number 2. And we met in a hotel on the Bayswater Road. He says, "Now then, I've also heard my old club have been on to you." I said, "Yeah, they have, yeah. Take my advice and take it. All you've got to do is turn them out."
So you turned down Everton, you'd had this conversation with Don Revie, then you think, right.
This is it.
This is too big a job and too big an opportunity to turn down. So what was the first thing? So Leeds, the champions, had a shambolic start to the next season. Billy Bremen had been suspended for a few games, hadn't he? Because he'd been sent off for fighting the Charity Shield.
And he was injured as well.
And injured. Clough goes after 44 days. It's absolute chaos, isn't it? He alienated the dressing room, told them to chuck their medals in the bins because they won them by cheating.
Yeah.
So what's your first game in charge? I think you told me once you used to have lunch in Roundhay Park.
Roundhay Park.
So what did you say to the team?
Well, I let Maurice Lindley pick the team because he'd been with Don quite a long time. And I said to him, "What's up with him?" They just didn't gel. He said because he'd said things about Leeds, Revie style, criticised, he'd been very critical of them. And they were going to take some manoeuvring. They're just not responding at all. And in the meantime, I'm led to believe that people like Johnny Giles and Billy Bremner might have thought, they might have done the job. I don't know. Anyway, we sat down at Roundhay Park and he said his words and I watched them all and I was looking at them and they were all looking at me. I said, "I'll just say one thing to you, really. Maurice has picked the team. I'm not going to make my mind up about you all until we've been here for a little bit of time. I am the total opposite of Brian. Just ask me one question. Why is this team of international players who win the Championship next to the bottom of the First Division? Please somebody tell me." Got a few words out of 1 or 2 of them. I think we played Arsenal first. They won 2-0. Somebody said, "What did you say to those players?" Turned it round. "What did you say?" I didn't tell them. Never said. two bits of sandpaper don't rub together quite so easily.
And they pick up such an extent, never a problem about keeping their place in the old First Division, but reached the European Cup final.
Well, we did. We came through Europe. Well, in those days, it was a knockout as well. Losing, you're out. Beat Zurich first, then we played Anderlecht. We passed Doja, who actually were quite good. And then, of course, we played Barcelona. Cruyff and Nayskins, they were favourites to win it. We beat them at home 2-1, and we drew 1 each there.
The ball just outside that Barcelona penalty, and a chance for Leeds United, and Leeds United have scored. And the stadium has gone absolutely silent. 90,000 people have absolutely lost their voices, and Leeds United have got just the start they wanted. Only 7 minutes gone, and incredibly, Leeds United have scored. So Leeds United lead by 3-1 on aggregate, and it's going to take all the might of Barcelona and Johan Cruyff now.
They were good players, and they took us to the final. I mean, see, to beat Barcelona was quite an achievement, really. I must give myself a little bit of credit. Tactically, we played well, but the players individually were good.
And you played Bayern Munich in Paris. They were the great Bayern Munich, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the Beckenbauer Bayern Munich, the Gerd Müller Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
You played really well, didn't you?
Yeah, we played well. Couldn't have asked any more. Scored a goal. Had a penalty turned down, which... It's easy. If you look at it now on the old films, you can see it's a blatant penalty.
Beckenbauer fouled Alan Clark.
Clarkey coming through on the byline, pulled him down. I mean, see, it was ridiculous. And I remember we had Bob English, our old physio, with us, and I turned to him. I said, we're going to finish up with a draw. So he says, why? I said, I don't think we're going to win this somehow. And within 5 minutes, they scored.
So you had the penalty turned down. Then Lorimer volleys in a goal. And Billy Bremner is marginally offside in a passive position, as we'd say nowadays.
Yeah, doing nothing. It was just
doing nothing.
It was unbelievable.
Initially, the goal was given, wasn't it? Then Beckenbauer made the referee go and talk to the linesman.
That's right.
Who'd run back to the centre circle, run back to the halfway line.
20 minutes gone then in the second half, and still the Parc des Princes waits for a goal in this 20th European Cup final. A free kick to Leeds United, taken there by Charles, nodded inside there by Madeley. The ball's up in the air, and the shot there by Peter Lorimer, and that is that. We are 20 minutes into this second half. And in fact, the flag is up on this near side. The Leeds United players are appealing. The flag is up on this near side of the field. And I think the referee is going to disallow it. No question about that. We've got Mr. Kitchepian now coming to this near side to talk to the linesman himself. He's being followed by Joris. He's being followed by Rini. And in fact, there's Rini holding the Leeds United players back. And in fact, he's had a word with the linesman. And that goal has been disallowed.
And of course, we lost the match. I was livid. I was upset. I was upset for the players. You know, they left the medals in the dressing room. I picked them all up and took them back, and I gave it to them all when we all settled down. They wouldn't pick them up.
Do you think the referee was got at?
I'll never know that. I can't really believe that a referee can be got at, but it has been known now, of course. Since.
Well, it was known with Nottingham Forest in a UEFA Cup a few years afterwards.
Let's put it this way. I didn't want to believe that. And what happened was, of course, our supporters, they were sitting by it all. They started, misbehaving. Well, one or two of them did. Consequently, there was eruptions afterwards.
And more missiles are coming on now, and a Leeds fan has jumped over the touchline, has jumped over the wall rather, and is being restrained by at least a dozen people as the ball is back in play again. You don't know what to watch here, the terraces or the field, and that fan is dragged away. 10 minutes of this European Cup final to go. Leeds trailing by 1-0. The scorer, Franz Ruth, for Bayern Munich. And Leeds are under pressure again as the ball is slid into the middle. That ball has made it through, and Leeds United are dead now. Gerd Müller takes the congratulations of the joyous Bayern Munich fans. And Leeds, after waiting 10 years, see the European Cup snatched from their grasp. Bayern Munich 2. Leeds United 0. A sad, sad night for English football.
We finished up with a 4-year ban from Europe.
You didn't say anything in the immediate aftermath of the game to the press, the people.
Well, I knew, because I knew what happened.
Did you have to count to 100 and swallow hard and think,
no, I'm quite good.
Much as I want to, I'm not going to say anything?
No, I'm not too bad at holding my temper.
But you admitted you were livid. I've never heard you say you've ever been angry before, Jimmy.
Oh, I was upset for the players and the spectators. I was upset for them all. I thought they deserved to win it. We got the 4-year ban, and I thought, now what am I going to do here? So I went to the board and I just said to them, we should appeal against this. Oh, wasting your time. They all said, wasting your time. And nobody wanted to do it. So I said, well, I'm going to appeal against it. And I always remember Bob Roberts, who was one of the directors, said, well, that's up to you. If you want to, but we're not standing anywhere, but it's up to you. So I got my air ticket, went off to Geneva. I got it reduced to 2 years. At least the secretary paid me my airfare back. I knew then that was the time when I was going to have to make changes in the team. I didn't officially get sacked. It wasn't so they sacked me. We got 3 new directors, and the new directors said we were 7. Changed a few of the team over. You can't change a team over like we had and lose Bremner and Giles and Hunter and Lorimer and Yora. We can't do it. I said, you just can't do it. I can't replace them, never mind anything else. I said, gradually, it's one at a time, a bit at a time, which is what we're doing. I brought 4 players in, they all did it for us. And we were doing okay. And I thought, oh, things are starting to look good. We got a youth team going. These young directors were saying, well, I said behind my back when I wasn't there apparently that it's not the same league, as it had been. And I could see that there was a bit of anxiety. And I've been there, 4 years? My contract ran out in November, 1st of November, end of October. And it was then June. I said to the chairman, I don't want to start committing myself. Because I've got elderly parents, kids in school, wife's nursing, friends are all around me in Blackpool. I said, I don't want to start committing myself until, if you're going to give me another contract. Contract ends in another 5 months. I'll be signing on for a 4-year deal. And he said, well, I'll ask him. I said, well, they either do want me or they don't. It's as simple as that. Anyway, in the end, he said they won't extend your contract. So I said, in that case, then it's better if we call it a day.
Were you ready then to step away from frontline management? As you said, the kids were at school.
Well, I was offered Newcastle, Chelsea. I was then offered Atletico Bilbao. I assume that was on the strength of beating Barcelona, I don't know. And then I was offered the national coach's job in Iran. They offered me £20,000 more than I'd ever been on, which was quite a lot of money then. I thought about it, I thought, blimey. And while they did it, they attacked the American embassy, and it made my mind up. Paul Doherty, who was running Granada Television, said, would you come and do 1 or 2 shows for us? So I did. I went and did 1 or 2 shows. He gave me a few bob, and it taught me a little bit about, how television worked. And then I saw myself on television, and I thought, oh no. Frankly, I didn't like what I saw. I thought it was all right, but Paul knew I wasn't over keen on it. And then out of the blue one day, John Helm, who was at BBC Radio 2, which was just up the road, because by then I was working at the Daily Express. Mike Dempsey had taken me on as a part-time sports reporter. And John Helm came to me and said, look, next Saturday, why don't you come with us? So where are you going? He said, Manchester City. I said, I forget who they were playing. I think it was Crystal Palace, Southampton, one of them. He said, would you be interested in doing the summariser's job? And I said, yeah. And the rest is sort of history. As soon as I sat down, I felt totally relaxed and comfortable. And I've never been on edge all the time I've been on broadcasting. Even when we've had, some very difficult moments. Everybody thinks that we sit down and you switch on and there we go, and we're over there, sit down, have a cup of tea at half time and go. No, it doesn't work like that.
You tell them, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, we've had scenarios where, there's 2 or 3 I always remember. Somebody asked me what's the most difficult summarising job I've ever done. It was the World Cup final in America, Italy and Brazil. Alan Green, Mike Ingham and myself. No cover in the open air. I don't know what the temperature was. It was boiling. And we were in the sun, and we can tell what it was like. They brought ice buckets for us, and we were putting them on our heads and on our necks. It was so bad you could hardly, you know. I've watched better matches in the Lancashire combination. You know, there was no flair with it. It was 0-0. It went to penalties. Italy, really, they should have won it, but they didn't. Di Baggio missed the penalty. I bet he's lived with that.
This could be a nightmare for Roberto Baggio now, because if Roberto Baggio doesn't score with this penalty against Claudio Taffarel, Brazil, for the first time in nearly a quarter of a century, will be champions of the world. Roberto Baggio over the bar! Roberto Baggio puts the ball over the bar. The World Cup ends in victory for Brazil, and one of the stars of the tournament, Roberto Baggio, hangs his head, and Brazil all over the stadium. We see yellow, we see blue. Roberto Baggio has missed.
Well, that was incredible that Baggio should miss. But even the great players feel tension in a moment like this, and he put the ball way over the top. When I looked immediately at the Italian players. They just fell disconsolate to the ground.
It was so uncomfortable. The heat, unbelievable it was.
And once you'd got into broadcasting and journalism, was it a bit of a relief to be away from the pressure of day-to-day management? Was it nice to be able to have a bit more family time, and your kids were growing up and you could arrange your home time more to your needs than to a football club's needs?
Yeah, well, it's very tiring. Football managing is very tiring. I'd be quite often sat down in front of the telly here, and they'd all be watching whatever it would be, and I'd be thinking, well, I hope Eddie Gray's going to be fit this weekend, and then I can move Tony Curry to there, and yeah, you do that when you're a manager.
As a schoolboy, one day you hope you're playing a cup final, or you play for your country, and that dream comes true. It makes it worthwhile. As a manager, again, it's a terrific honour to be in charge of your country's football team.
You had a big role in appointing both Terry Venables and Glenn Hoddle. How much did you enjoy being part of that FA team which appointed those managers?
Well, it wasn't a team, it was me. Because, particularly with Terry, I'd seen what had happened to the England team. I've never lost interest in that, ever. And so, consequently, I looked round and thought about it. I thought, you wouldn't believe this. We went round. I remember us going to a cup tie at Grimsby. I was doing the commentary. I kept my radio work going all the time. We pulled the BBC van up. A few people came round when I got out. I said, are you all football supporters? Yeah. I said, what would you think about Terry Venables as England manager? To a man, they all said, oh yeah, great, up front, I said, have you any downs on him, at all, or anything? No, he's the kind of man you need, all this sort of. And wherever we went 2 or 3, so I did it in 2 or 3 different grounds. The football supporter, you see, has an enormous part to play because they influence so many things. It's like the politics. When it comes to voting time, everybody becomes crucial. And with Venables, there was few on the FA who were not keen on him for some reason or other. And of the panel of 5, it was 3 against 1.5. And I was the one who really stuck out for him. And in fact, in 1996, we should have won it. Should have won the Europeans. That was the day when poor old Gareth Southgate missed the penalty, and I was in the stand. I had to bite my tongue then.
It goes to the sudden death, and Gareth Southgate, who has been magnificent at the heart of England's defence, now has to score a goal to keep England going in the European Championship. Here he comes. Oh, and it's been saved by Kopka. Kopka dives to his right.
We were the best team in that tournament. We should have won it, and we didn't.
Why could you not persuade the FA to give him another contract?
I forget who it was rang me up to tell me that he better come down here. Terry Venables, I spoke to him as well. I don't think they're going to keep him. Whoa, just a minute, We just lost in the semi-final, and that was too bad, And that was the beginning of the end. There was 1 or 2 didn't want him to start with. I must be fair, they never flinched.
Was that because of his business dealings? Was it more that?
Yeah, a bit of that as well, and I had people send me letters about him and so on, And so it was summertime, and in 2 months we were going to be playing Georgia in the World Cup. So I had to get on my bike quick. And as I kept telling the FA I was only interested in English managers, for an England team. They said to me, Graham Kelly said, well, go and find us somebody else. It's all right, people say go and get Alec Ferguson. I went and had a word with Alec. And I said to him, you know, what do you think about this? He said, well, he said, I'm not interested in. I said, okay. I said, if you were, you know.
Straight out, not interested?
No, he wasn't interested.
Ever?
No, he wasn't interested, no. And Glenn was doing nothing. And of course, you know, he'd been a manager, he'd been at Chelsea. He'd done all right. I had a long talk to him. I met him then, and I met him on a car park and told him, I'm going to recommend you have the job if you want to do it. I said to them both before they started, if there's anything untoward we should know about before we do this, we might as well get it out in the open first of all. If there is anything, the media will find it. I won't need to get Scotland Yard out. They'll find it if there's anything untoward. Comes with the job, that's part of the territory. Here. And they both told me, you know, there's nothing to bother about. And we went on, we were doing very well, and we did well in the World Cup. We lost on a penalty shootout again to Argentina, who we should have walloped. That's life. I said, Glenn, you know, we've had him all these things, shook hands with him. I said to him, well, we'll pick up again in August, you know, see how we go when we go for Euros, you know. And the rest is history.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Brian Hayes with Late Night Live, the last word on today's news and sport and the first on tomorrow's. Tonight's main news, Glenn Hoddle has been sacked as England coach and British Tornadoes have launched another raid on Iraq.
In sport, the FA sent for Sergeant Wilco to replace Hoddle and Spurs finally go one-up in the 4-match series with Wimbledon.
Later on the programme we speak to the journalist responsible for the story that led to the downfall of Glenn Hoddle. First, we have tonight's news from David McNeil.
Your final thoughts on the game that you love, where it is today, and what you would change about it if you could.
Somebody asked me about 2 weeks ago, what about, do you wish you were playing now? The pitches are better. The kit's better. The actual preparation is better. I've got to believe that. The treatment of injuries is better. The money's better. And you asked me, do you wish I was playing now? And we might look on the present day players as having frailties. I'd like to see the game toughen up a little bit. I would. All things change. You know, one thing I've learned as I've got older is all things have changed, and invariably it's been for the better, despite what people say. And yet, you know, I believe I might have lived at the best time.
How would you like to be remembered?
I don't know really. Does it really matter? I've always tried to be loyal. You know, I've never left Blackpool in that respect.
And how have you found the reaction to you from my generation downwards, who doesn't remember you playing, but always remembers you on the radio and writing the newspapers? So, you know, we know about you from the history books, from the record books, from old films, but obviously we don't know you as the footballer. How have you found the reaction towards you from that generation downwards?
Somebody asked me once, and they said, when you see yourself now, you know, and said, don't you wish you'd have had all the television programmes they had, you know, when you were playing? And I thought about it for a minute. And I said, I'm not so sure, really. I said, it's probably better to let them think I was a half-decent player.